Kilmar Abrego Gracia, the Maryland man the Trump administration said was mistakenly deported to a mega prison in his native country of El Salvador, has been returned to the United States. A federal judge and later the Supreme Court ordered the administration to facilitate Abrego Gracia's return, but the White House insisted it had no authority to bring him back to the United States. Now, in a dramatic twist and perhaps to save face after months of stalling, Attorney General Pam Bondi announced that Abrego Gracia was back to face American justice on charges of alien smuggling.
We want to thank President Bukele for agreeing to return Abrego Gracia to the United States. Our government presented El Salvador with an arrest warrant, and they agreed to return him to our country. We're grateful to President Bukele for agreeing to return him to our country to face these very serious charges. This is what American justice looks like.
Abrego Gracia has lived in this country as an undocumented immigrant for years, since escaping El Salvador as a teen, where he said gangs threatened him and his family. In 2019, an immigration judge viewed those threats sufficient to issue an order specifically barring Abrego Gracia from being deported to El Salvador. But that's exactly what happened when he was picked up in March by immigration and customs enforcement officials, and accused him. They accused him of being a member of the MS-13 gang, which is an accusation he denies. His attorney said then that Abrego Gracia was denied due process, and now says bringing him home for prosecution is, quote, an abuse of power, not justice. Joining me now is Alan Orr. He's an immigration attorney in Washington, D.C. He's the former president of the American Immigration Lawyers Association. Alan, good to see you. Thank you for being with us. Okay, two separate stories that are moving in parallel right now. One is that the administration has avoided what a lot of people saw as a collision with the Supreme Court by bringing Abrego Gracia back to the United States. It is interesting that the indictment against him was unsealed on, I think, May 25th or May 26th. He was deported in March.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there's a lot of things happening at once that I think is important to talk about with the Maryland case, because the court had allowed for sanctions to be moved against the government for not bringing him back, and there's going to be an investigation into why they weren't facilitating it. At the same time, on a national level, with the whole group that has been disappeared, there was a judge, Judge Boasberg said by June 11th, the government needed to give a court date to facilitate how they were going to look at all the other 260 people there. What we're looking at on a wider scale is the 600 people who have been disappeared from the United States, the people who are in El Salvador, the people who are in Panama, and now the people who are in Djibouti. The people in Djibouti are the only people who were removed, disappeared from the United States without due process after the Supreme Court said every individual deserves due process. So that's the greater story that we're looking at.
So the administration has made a big deal about what a criminal they believe Abrego Gracia is. That was never the discussion, right? The discussion is criminal or not, American or not, due process is written into the Constitution, and it's what we are all entitled to. It does seem a little bit like two stories intersecting for political convenience.
It is. And I think what's important for people to understand is that in law, there are two things that run at once. There's the procedure, which is meaning the rules of the game. And then there's also the merits, which is the substance of the case. And what everybody's been arguing about in the Gracia case, specifically the politicians, have been, you did not follow the right procedure, so we don't know what your findings are, if they're true or not. If you don't follow the rules to get to the right result, then it doesn't seem to be fair in the American jurisprudence system. And that's the way it's sort of set up, when you just sort of determine someone's guilty without sort of running into the process. And even this late charge that came about seems a little bit foul, but we're waiting to see how it runs through the process, because if he was detained way back in 2021, and with his status in the United States, this withholding of removal, he was doing check-ins with the government. So if there was a problem, you would have said that at the time you removed him in the first case. And if you said he was a criminal and he needed to be removed before, then why are you bringing him back to say he's a criminal and now he needs due process? It's inconsistent thoughts and patterns.
Alan, thank you. I appreciate it always. You make these things so much clearer for us. Alan Orr is an immigration attorney.